EMR settings configuration, setting up EPCS in PrognoCIS. As we've discussed in previous videos, there are several steps to implementing the electronic prescription of controlled substances in PrognoCIS. Some of the prerequisites for each prescribing provider are that each one must be enrolled for the EPCS service with SureScripts. That is taken care of through PrognoCIS. Each one must be identity proofed through a two-factor authentication with a federally approved agency. Each one must procure a personal security token with a digital certificate that confirms that identity. If any of you have not done that yet, then if you are a new client still implementing, you can work through the implementation manager to get this accomplished. Or if you're a live client and are just adding the module into your service, then please contact technical support. Now, it's that third bullet point there, the digital certificate that confirms your identity, that we're going to talk about in this video. Part of this has to be done through the internal system administrator. So this would be whomever within your practice is designated with the administrator role, whether this is your office manager, one of the nurses or the doctor, or even if you have an IT person that does all of the PrognoCIS technical part. This is going to require that two different individuals within your practice who are PrognoCIS users be defined specific roles. One of those roles is the EPCS enable. This would be for any user other than a provider. So this could be a nurse, a medical assistant, the office manager. The second person then must be a DEA registrant who has also been identity proofed. Now, in a single physician practice, this may be the prescribing provider. But within a multi-provider practice, one provider needs to be designated as the approver, and he or she will then be able to approve all of the others. Then each of these users that are given these roles will have to log into the provider level profiles for each prescribing provider. One will enable the functionality for each doctor. The second person will approve that doctor's token, which is going to register the digital certificate confirming that provider's identity to his or her password within PrognoCIS. So these bottom two steps are what we're going to look at now in our video. So I've toggled into PrognoCIS where you'll see I'm logged in as the administrator. The first thing we're going to do is take two of our users in PrognoCIS and assign those roles. And we're going to do that here under the admin user role column. So I'm going to first of all choose Connor Walsh, my medical assistant, to be the enabler. So as I come in here to his user role profile, you will see the approve EPCS and enable EPCS roles. I'm simply going to select to enable EPCS for Connor and save it. Now all this is doing is giving Connor the functionality of enabling EPCS for other doctors. No other user in the practice will have that permission. I'm going to go back into my staff lookup and I'm going to choose one of my doctors. Now again, the approver can be any of your DEA registrants, whether they are a practicing provider, whether they're a prescribing provider, as long as they have been identity proofed and have their own token. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose Sheldon Cooper, and I'm going to give him the approve EPCS role. So now, as the administrator, I've done the first part of the EPCS setup in PrognoCIS, which was to assign these user roles. Now I'm going to log out as the administrator and then log back in first as Connor to enable the functionality for my doctors, and then I will log in as Dr. Cooper to approve it. So first I'm going to log in here as Connor, and this particular EPCS setup is also done under settings configuration, and we're going to go to our provider master. So under our medics column, I'm going to go to providers, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose Dr. Cooper. And I'm going to enable the EPCS. Now, a couple of things to note on this screen. First, in the upper right, we do see that ERX has been enabled. That simply means the ability of electronically prescribing standard medications. But down here at the bottom, we have a button with the label EPCS. Connor is the only one that will see this button because of that user role we just assigned him to enable EPCS. So other medical assistants and nurses may have the ability to come in here to the provider master, but they will not see the EPCS button unless they have been given that role. So as Connor, I'm going to click that button. We see here that the current status for Dr. Cooper, EPCS, is disabled, and my only option is to enable it. So I'm simply going to click that enable button, and notice now my status has changed to enabled. And that's all Connor has to do. So I can close that. Now, if he needs to enable the other physicians, of course, he could go ahead and do that by choosing each provider record and do the same process. And as long as that status says enabled, then the next person can come in and approve that same provider for the functionality. So I'm going to log out as Connor, and now I'm going to log in as Dr. Cooper, since he is the approver. And again, in a multi-provider practice, only one of the doctors needs to have this approved role. So I'm going to go right back into that provider master like Connor did. I'm going to open up myself this time. I also have the EPCS button available to me because of that role. But notice when I click the button, I have different choices than Connor did. The only option Connor had was to enable the functionality. That is what gives me, as the approver, all of these other choices. Had Connor not enabled it, I, as Dr. Cooper, would not have this screen now and would not be able to register the token. So this is going to be a two-part process. Down here at the bottom, we see we have the one-time password e-token register. So you're going to physically insert the token into the USB port of the computer, push the button on the end of it, which is going to display a unique 6-digit code in the screen. Put that 6-digit code in here, and we're going to click the checkbox OTP e-token register. It's going to take a few seconds, and then it'll give me a confirmation that I have successfully authenticated my token. Next, once I'm done registering the token in PrognoCIS, I need to approve access for the provider. So up here at the top, underneath the access control section, I'm going to enter the provider's PrognoCIS password as well as another one-time password code. So while my token is still inserted in the USB port of the computer, I'm going to push the button on the end of the token to generate another 6-digit code. When it appears in the screen, I'm going to go ahead and enter it here and then click the approve button. And now this brings up a list of the digital certificates on the computer. So you'll just select the certificate in the list that matches your token and click the OK button. And that is then going to open up the SafeNet authentication client software. Now you'll recall from the identity proofing video, the SafeNet authentication software is the CD that came in the package with the actual token. And during that identity proofing setup, you registered your token and assigned a password with the SafeNet client software. That's the password you're going to enter here, where it asks for a token passcode. And this is what synchronizes your token now with the PrognoCIS setup for this provider, as well as the identity proofing account with IdenTrust. And now you'll notice that the access control says approved. And I've got the confirmation that I have successfully updated clinic details and provider details. And that is all that's required in the setup within PrognoCIS. The enabling by the one individual who is not a provider, and then the approving by the DEA registrant. There are separate videos here on the Resource Center that go through the steps of actually generating a prescription, both controlled substance as well as standard drugs. So in review, prior to setting up EPCS within PrognoCIS, each provider must first be enrolled with SureScripts for the Controlled Substance Electronic Prescription Program. This, of course, is done through PrognoCIS with SureScript. Each provider must also then be identity proofed individually and have a personal security token. Within PrognoCIS, the clinic EHR administrator needs to assign the EPCS user roles to two separate individuals who can verify the provider's identity. One will be known as the enabler, who is not a provider. The other, who must be a DEA registrant, would be referred to as the approver. Each of those individuals then needs to log in and activate the EPCS functionality for the prescribing provider, then approve and register the token and the one-time password with the digital certificate inside PrognoCIS to synchronize it with the IdenTrust account. Only then will the providers be able to send electronic prescription of controlled substances.